I'm Katie, the Community Learning Officer for Manx National Heritage, and today you join us at the top of Meayll Hill on a very blustery day near Cregneash. Today we are visiting a really intriguing archaeological site called the Meayll Circle. It's an unusual site, not just on the Isle of Man, but also across the British Isles. There is nowhere quite like the Meayll Circle anywhere else in Britain. We've chosen to visit the Meayll Circle today because it's relatively easy to access as long as you've got a stout pair of shoes. It's set in a stunning location and it can teach us loads about the early people who lived on the Isle of Man. Now we're going to join Anthea, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about what this site actually is.
Meayll Circle is a Neolithic chambered cairn or burial site. Neolithic means New Stone Age, and this site is around 5,000 years old. We can tell that this big stone or megalithic site is actually man-made because of the way that the stones have been arranged in a circle. The 12 burial chambers are arranged in pairs. There are 6 pairs around the circumference of the monument. Each pair of kists has a small passageway which makes this feature T-shaped. We know that each of the kists contained charred bone remains, pottery and flint. This tells us that the people took a great deal of care in where and how they placed their ancestors for all eternity. Flint was used to make many tools in the Neolithic period. Here we have a fine blade which would have been used possibly to remove scales of fish, an awl which could have been used to put holes in leather. We have a humpbacked scraper and a projectile, the tip of an arrowhead, which would have been fixed to a piece of wood to enable hunting or spearing fish. Pottery fragments found at this site gave its name to the Meayll Hill pottery. This type of pottery was very smooth and contrasting with the Ronaldsway pottery, which is also Neolithic and found on the Isle of Man. The appearance of cereal grains imprinted into some of the pottery found at this site gave us an insight into the first farmers, as we know that this is when cereals were first cultivated on the Isle of Man.
So Anthea was just talking a little bit about the pottery shards found at this site. And it's actually really easy to have a go at making a pot yourself at home. Neolithic pottery was made from clay and it was made really quite simply. We're going to make a small pot today, using shop-bought clay, but Neolithic pots from this period were generally pinch pots. So they were made with a small piece of clay and they were pinched into the shape of a bowl. Now this pot is very small of course, and much bigger pots were found here on the site. To make the pot a bit taller, you could use a coil of clay and wrap it around the top. And archaeologists feel that they would have used stones or something smooth to round out the centre, like this. Or even something like a piece of flint to smooth the outside. I'm just going to give you an example as well of how you could make a coil top for your pot. So if you get another bit of clay, turn it into a sausage shape. No rolling pins please, because of course they would have been doing this in quite rustic conditions. So we'll do it all by shape by hand and we'll make a rim for our pot. The pots were very simply decorated. So perhaps you could use your fingernail or your thumbprints to make some sort of patterns around it. And as I've said, you've got plenty of time to decorate the pot as you like. Now the reason we know so much about this site is because it's been excavated by archaeologists a number of times. The first dig took place in 1893 and was led by Mr. P.M.C. Kermode, who was the first curator of the Manx Museum. Now pottery shards found on this site indicate that this was the earliest type of pottery found on the Isle of Man, and it's completely unique to the Isle of Man. And what I think is really interesting is that the shards of pottery that came from here have got fingerprints, thumbprints and fingernail marks of people that lived 5,000 years ago. And I think that's absolutely extraordinary to think that you can see the fingerprint of someone that lived that long ago. The little shards of pottery that were found here are on display in the Manx Museum galleries. So as soon as you're able, make sure you pop along and have a look. So here's my attempt at a Neolithic type pot, but I'm sure you'll do much better at home.
Great pot, Katie.
Thank you.
That's all for this week's instalment on Museum on the Move at Meayll Circle. And as always, we've posted some great family resources on our family learning pages, so you can have a look at those. And there are links to iMuseum, so you can look at some of the archaeology that was discovered at this site also.
And yeah, why not make a visit to Meayll Circle yourself? It's quite an easy site to visit. And on a gorgeous day like today, what could be better? See you next week.